Welcome to the Smart Business Revolution.
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 You want a revolution?
You say you want a revolution?
Revolution. The revolution.
It's going on right now.
Welcome to The Revolution, the Smart Business Revolution podcast, where we ask today's most successful entrepreneurs to share the tools and strategies they use to build relationships and connections to grow their revenue. Now, your host for The Revolution, John Corcoran.
All right, welcome everyone. John Corcoran here, the host of this show, and I interview smart CEOs, founders, entrepreneurs of all kinds of companies. You know, some of my past guests like Netflix, Kinko's, YPO, EO, Activation Blizzard, a few of those, Redfin. Go check them out in the archives. I'm also the co-founder of Rise 25, where we help connect B2B business owners to their ideal prospects. My guest today is Jon Morris. First of all, quick shout out to Gianna Barrett of First Page Strategy, who told me about Jon. And coincidentally, he had previously been on Inspired Insider, my business partners podcast. So go check that out as well. But he turned $10,000 into one of the largest independent digital agencies out there. Rise Interactive is the name of it. It's a full service digital marketing agency. Also founded Ramsay Innovations, a tech enabled finance and strategy planning company for marketing agencies to help them to have the same success that he experienced with Rise Interactive. He likes to brag, fun fact, that he is awesome at boring. So we'll find out what exactly that means in the context of business. And we'll talk about some of the new things that he's up to as well. Of course, this podcast brought to you by Rise 25, our company where we help businesses to get clients, referrals, and strategic partnerships with done-for-you podcasts and content marketing. And you can learn all about it at rise25.com. All right, Jon, pleasure to have you here. And I love to ask people about their backgrounds, their childhood, and what they were like as a kid and how that shaped who they are today. We were just chatting before this interview, and you said that it took a little while for academia to click for you. You would get good grades on exams, but then poor grades in the class because you just didn't show up. Tell me a little bit about that. What was it as a kid that was kind of struggling for you with academia?
You know, I couldn't tell you exactly what it is. I could just tell you that it took me a long time to mature. I always excelled at math and science and could do really well, but never applied myself, never did the homework assignments, struggled more on the English writing history side. You know, a couple of my quotes that probably have motivated me in different ways. One of them was my 7th grade English teacher said that I'll never be able to write a complete sentence, let alone go to college. I was failing every single class as a freshman by Thanksgiving, but turned it around and ended up getting, a good solid 2.0 for my GPA that year. But, something happened my sophomore year of college where things all of a sudden just clicked and I knew what I needed to do to get things done. But what I would say is that time period still motivates me a lot, so when I think about, where I was versus where I want to go, I have a drive that, looks to kind of put that in the past.
And you have a great work ethic. So you grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. Your grandparents were entrepreneurs. Your parents were entrepreneurs. You started working in your father's warehouse from a young age. Talk a little bit about how that shaped you.
If I look at my father, he's in his 80s and still works 6 days a week. I had someone who was constantly working, and it was a huge role model to me. My breaks, I was sitting there working with him. In between the summer, my senior year, my freshman year, I had a job literally making 500 phone calls a day. Like I was the automated, dialer before there was an automated dialer.
Wow.
For a stock brokerage company. And then I was a busboy after that. So I basically worked from 8:30 in the morning to 1 in the morning every day.
Wow.
And so I've always had a pretty solid work ethic and loved applying myself. And I think it's being surrounded by people who were doing the same, and that was, and today, I still balance family and work where, one of my mentors once said that life's a triangle. You have work, family, and self, pick two. So I pick family and I pick work and I go all in on those two things.
Well, something clicked for you when you got to college around your sophomore year. You said you kind of figured out college at that point, started getting better grades, managed to then graduate after that. This is mid 90s. So kind of the heyday of, internet 1.0, if you will. Did you look at that kind of everything that was happening, the .com boom, and think I want to be a part of that?
No clue. When I graduated college in 1996, the very first time I saw the internet was in January of 96. I had no idea what it was. I had no idea what you would use it for, why it would matter. And so, I just wanted a job, ideally at a major consulting firm. I applied every consulting firm, got a final interview with every major consulting firm, and got rejected by every major consulting firm, which actually was fortuitous because those events got me into digital marketing. When I graduated college, I started my first agency called Net Traffic and built the ugliest websites you could ever see. But a lot of people just kept on asking me, well, how's my website going to get found? And I didn't know the answer. No one knew the answer. And so
it was pre-Google, it was like people are using Yahoo, I guess, at that point.
Yahoo was without a doubt the 800-pound gorilla, but you had Excite, Alta Vista, InfoSeek, Hotbot. You had all these search engines that don't exist today. And, I focused on search engine optimization and being the experts at those different search engines.
That must have been just like selling something completely foreign to people. How do you sell SEO in the mid 90s when no one knows what SEO is?
What I would say is there was huge demand in the sense of more and more money was shifting that way. And when people wouldn't sell SEO, you would explain that people are using these things called search engines, and that's how you get found, and will help you get found within those search engines. But what's different, like when I compare like my next agency, Rise Interactive, to Net Traffic, I was convincing people that they needed to do digital marketing. Enterprise Rent-A-Car hired us. We were the very first digital agency they ever hired, period.
Wow.
And so, we were at that time period getting people introduced and convincing them that they should try the web. Where at Rise, it was the opposite. We didn't want to sell to someone who we had to convince that they needed to do digital marketing. We wanted to work with people who were already doing digital marketing. They just wanted to do it better. Yeah.
And by the time you started Rise, is the internet has evolved a bit, and companies have evolved a bit. This is 2004 when you started it. You've, I think you've started graduate school. You're getting your MBA, University of Chicago by that point. Did you start that while you were still in your program?
Yeah. So University of Chicago has an annual business plan competition called the New Venture Challenge. I entered the competition, took second place, won $10,000. And that was actually the seed money I used to create Rise.
And what was your thought behind how it was going to be different, or what was the approach to it?
Well, so the original idea and what I pitched in the competition was to actually put on seminars and training programs to teach digital marketing to people who wanted to learn how to do it themselves. Okay. And as I was putting on these 2-day seminars, people kept on coming up to me and just said, couldn't you just do this for us as opposed to us learning how to do it ourselves? And I came to the conclusion that it was a better business model. So I pivoted, in that regard.
Yeah. What are a few of the pivot points, so to speak, over the 16 or so, 18, 17 years now that you've been involved? Because it's, as you said, it's grown tremendously. Yeah. What do you think some of the reasons were that it's been able to grow?
If you think about the ability to measure your marketing dollars, there's so much more data available in digital marketing than there is in traditional marketing. Additionally, if you just think about where the eyeballs are going and, where people would typically spend their money, or their time in terms of consuming media, there's just more that has moved towards the web. And so one of the things I just believe is a crucial component to business is to go where the wind is blowing. And I'm going to give you an example in a second, but, so the main reason why, and I think a big part of our success was that we had wind at our back. And I'll give you an example. I used to do a ton of triathlons, and I was doing my first half Ironman, and it was in Southern Illinois. It was a cold, freezing day in September with really strong winds, 20 to 30 mile per hour winds. We went out on one road, 28 miles, and then turned around and went back the other way. The first 28 miles, I was biking directly into the wind. And I normally at that moment in time would average about 20 to 21 miles per hour when I was biking. I was going between 6 and 8 miles per hour for all 28 miles.
Sounds brutal.
It was horrible. But when I turned around, I was going 30 to 35 miles per hour.
Wow.
And the only reason why I didn't go faster is, to be honest, I just got scared going faster. So, but having that wind at my back made all the difference in the world. It is the exact same thing in business. If you pick an industry that is shrinking or dying, you're going to have a really hard time. It doesn't matter how smart you are, you're not going to be able to fight the wind. Versus by going into digital marketing, I had wind at my back, and that, I think, helped the business quite a bit.
Now, one of the things I like to ask about, just to be kind of counterpoint to that, is one of the tensions for any business is what to pursue and what not to pursue. You have limited resources. Sometimes you want to stay in your lane, focus on what you focus on. If a client comes to you and says, well, can you do X, Y, Z? If you say yes to every single one, pretty soon you're everything to everyone and nothing to no one. So how do you control that tension? How do you decide what to listen to? When do you follow that wind and when do you not?
So I'm a huge believer in doing a few things incredibly well. And when you feel like you have the right amount of infrastructure, then start expanding into your additional services. I'll give you an example. When Steve Jobs came back as CEO of Apple, I believe one of the first things he did is start limiting his products down to like 6 products and just be amazing at those 6 products. And so I would much rather be an inch wide and a mile deep. Now, I'll just give you an example. I'll use the paid search industry. Paid search, as far as I know, is around a $65 billion industry, growing at about 20% a year. So if you can be amazing at just paid search, you have wind at your back. You don't have to offer everything. So, you have to determine, as you start widening your services, your innovation gets harder and harder and harder because you have to innovate in all those services, or you're just going to have something neglected.
Yeah. Now, the company existed through 16, it continues to exist, 16, 17, 18 years, as I said now. At some point, you decided that maybe it was time for me to step aside as CEO and take a board role, which is what you did. It was interesting timing, though. Talk about the timing of when you announced this.
So I announced on March 2nd of 2020 that I was stepping down as CEO. At that moment in time, there was a lot of chatter about it, but, there was nothing that in my mind would have been like 10 days later, which is exactly what happened on March 12th. We went to work from home. And so I announced on March 2nd that March 31st was my last day as CEO of Rise. And I turned it over to Larry, who's the current CEO of Rise, and wished him luck as I gave him a full pandemic to lead the company.
And he's like, thanks a lot, dude.
But you know what? I will tell you this. He was absolutely the right person for the job. He did such an amazing job of building calm and proving amazing leadership to everybody in that time period.
Was there ever a moment where someone came to you or you thought, maybe I should put a pause on this, step back into the CEO role for a little while until this blows over?
You know what? No, because I knew that Larry was up for the job, and we had a good plan in place. He executed the plan. I was there for guidance when he needed it. But he was already the president of Rise. And so it wasn't like a massive turnover transition, at that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, at this point, you've started a massive agency. You've successfully replaced yourself and transitioned your way out of it. Naturally, you think, well, let's start another company. So where did that come about? Why and why are you not just sitting drinking a Mai Tai on a beach somewhere?
So by the way, if you talk to Larry, who's the current CEO of Rise, he'll tell you that his biggest frustration as it relates to me is that I'm not on the beach somewhere drinking a Mai Tai, that I started a business right away. And I think there's a couple of things. April 1st, for my first time ever, I am not, or first time after starting Rise, I'm not running Rise. I don't have 80-hour, responsibilities per week. And
April 1st of 2020 or April 1st?
April 1st of 2020.
2020. Okay.
One of my favorite things is April Fool's Day. So maybe this was an April Fool's Day joke on me, but the airlines are shut down. The golf courses are closed.
Can't go anywhere.
I'm washing my furniture or my groceries at that time because, we didn't know if we could eat our groceries or not.
Yeah.
And so I have 3 young kids. At the time, they were 6, 8, and 10. And so, I needed to do something with my time. So I think that COVID helped accelerate when I started my next venture.
Mm.
When I was at Rise, we had a business coach who provided a lot of guidance for us. And we would meet with him quarterly. And he saw all of our financials. And he kept on saying that, he hasn't seen financials like this anywhere else. And he's like, it's a business within itself. And
what does that mean?
That he just thought that a lot of companies could use these insights into the business.
Oh, so the what became Ramsay Innovations, it was a business in itself. It was like another business you were incubating.
Exactly.
Got it.
And so that just stuck with me, and so when I was trying to think about what I wanted to do next, I love connecting with other agency owners, and I understand the complexities of agency businesses, professional services really well. And I thought it'd be really fun to help other agencies emulate the success I had at Rise by giving them the financial insights to make better decisions.
Yeah. And so it's definitely a shift in who you're working with then, yep. Right? Because you're working with what were your peers, right? Rather than working with the clientele.
Peers
that you're
or
working
competitors.
With. Yeah, peers or competitor. What was that like? Shifting, because that can be a major change, is working with a different type of clientele.
Yeah, well, that was, I didn't go into the reasons why I left Rise, but one of the reasons why I left was my favorite business day of the year is the first business day of the year, which I call game day. And I always have a really solid plan for how I'm going to have a successful year, going into that first business day. And as I was preparing for 2020, I thought I had a great plan. The only problem was it was the same plan as 2019. Mm. And I just didn't feel that I was growing and getting the challenges that I was looking for. And so I decided that it was time to look at something new. So, I'm dealing with a much lower average order value. The idea is to have a much higher volume of customers. We're building a SaaS product, so we're building technology that will be licensed. And I had technology at Rise, but it wasn't a SaaS product. It wasn't a standalone.
There's a lot of human capital labor involved.
Exactly. And so to me, I'm excited about the new challenges. And to be honest, these are people I know, maybe not know them personally, but I've lived their life. Anyone from an agency of 1 person to 250, I've dealt with all their issues, all their complexity. And so it's fun to kind of pass it on and help them.
Yeah. You may have just answered the next question I was going to ask, but I'll ask it anyways. I'm kind of fascinated with entrepreneurs who start a company that in many ways is a reaction to the limitations or the challenges of their previous company, and that structurally doesn't have those. Were there any other ways, looking back on it now, that you structured or made deliberate decisions with Ramsay that were overcoming the challenges that you had to deal with for 16 years at the helm of Rise Interactive?
I would say no, but what I would say is I've taken the learnings from Rise, and are applying those learnings to things I would have done different faster. So, so for example, when I was at Rise, by the time I left, I had amazing leaders in every single role within the company and people that I could completely let go of my work, trust them to get their job done so that I could go do my job. And but it took me a long time to make those investments to get those people in place. With this entity, we are working on building that infrastructure, I would say, at a much faster rate, where I have a really solid head of client success. I have an amazing product development team. My head of sales is phenomenal. My chief operating officer, which most of the groups of the company report into, is doing an incredible job. So I think I've built really solid leadership that's going to allow us to scale and grow the business up.
Yeah. But in some ways, though, it can be scary starting that new thing. All of a sudden you turn around, like you might have asked your assistant to do something and there's no one there. I
can tell you today, I scanned a bunch of mail that, I had to send to different groups that, I absolutely would have had an executive assistant doing that at Rise, So
yeah, you got to empty the trash now, right?
there's not a job I won't do, but that is a difference. When you go to a startup, you're going to have to roll up your sleeves and be comfortable doing any and every job. Yeah.
And in many ways, it's replaced with the newness, the energy. You getting that from it?
Yep. Look, I'm having fun. I like the stage of a business.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's really cool when people realize the stage of the business that they're most passionate about and deliberately replace themselves. I've interviewed people who talk about that. They get to whatever the ceiling is, they get to some point. And for many, that would be an amazing blessing, but they're like, nope, I'm hitting 50 million. I don't like this stage anymore. I want to go back to one.
Yeah. And I don't know. I've liked every stage, but there's something fun about the speed and the nimbleness of a startup and, building infrastructure, as opposed to maintaining infrastructure.
Yeah. I remember an entrepreneur telling me, I love the stage of picking out the stationery and the business cards and the logo and all that kind of stuff. That's really cool. Well, John, this has been a lot of fun. I know we're almost out of time. I'll wrap it up with the question that I always like asking, which is, I'm a big fan of gratitude, especially expressing gratitude to peers, contemporaries, however you want to define that, people who've helped you along the way. Who would you want to just call out publicly and thank them for helping you along your journey?
So I'm going to do two shout outs here. The first one is to Todd Smart. Todd was the business coach that we hired for teaching us the EOS methodology to how I run our business. And he was the person who talked about our finances and how impressive it was. And if it wasn't for him saying that and sticking in my mind, I don't know if Ramsay would exist today. The second one is my mentor, Jack Kraft. And Jack is the former vice chairman and chief operating officer of Leo Burnett. And I've known him since I was 22 years old. And he just left Leo Burnett. I'm 22 years old. I have net traffic. He met with me for an hour a week for at least a year and a half without ever charging me. And, I once asked him why. And he's like, I was on all these boards, some private, some public. And I didn't always feel that, my voice was getting heard, from some of these CEOs who thought they might know how to do everything. He's like, you would come back every single week and whatever we worked on, you made progress on it. And so it just felt good to see the momentum and the progress. But I talked to Jack almost, every day today, he's just been an amazing impact to my life.
What a great story. Thanks for sharing that. Well, John, where can people go to learn more about you and Ramsay Innovations?
So you can go to Ramsay, RAMSAY innovations.com. You can email me at jon@ramsayinnovations.com. And if you are an agency owner and you want tips on how to make your agency better, connect or follow me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. John, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Smart Business Revolution podcast with John Corcoran. Find out more at smartbusinessrevolution.com. And while you're there, sign up for our email list and join the revolution. Revolution. And be listening for the next episode of the Smart Business Revolution podcast.